Being a Christian is not easy. It's not a walk in the park, and the way that I like to see it is I have a job to do. As a Christian, as a man of God, I have a job to do, and sometimes it's a war every day, sometimes a war with yourself, sometimes a war with people, and the propaganda that we see pushing out, I see all sorts now. And it's interesting for me to say these things because I, perhaps maybe like many of you watching, I thought that when I returned to faith and sort of lived that rooted Christian life, I thought that it would be fairy tales and sunshine and just easy and all of these things. But what I've come to find is that a lot of that still remains, in the sense that there's trials, tribulations. You're just eating rubbish sandwiches every day. That is me not swearing. But what I'm trying to say is that being a Christian is not easy work. You're still going to go through the same trials. You're still going to go through the same pains. There's going to be breakups. People are going to leave. You're going to lose jobs, clients. There's all this stuff that is going to go on. And the strength that comes from being a Christian is how you're able to navigate through those situations, because you see, it's in those situations where we actually see what we're made of. And I know this sounds very typical, very cheesy, but what I'm trying to say here is when stuff does hit the fan, you can either react or you can respond. But whatever you begin to give power over, you essentially give control to. And if somebody can control you, something can control you, it can control your emotions, it can control your thoughts then control your actions then determine your reality. So whatever you're giving power to will literally take reign over your reality. And the only thing that you should be giving power to is God himself, the word of God, and committing yourself to be a rooted Christian. But back to the point of, it's hard work. Why is it hard work? It's hard because we understand what Jesus went through. We understand the process and the timeline of the Bible so far. For me to really explain this, I want to tell you a story about me, which is hard to tell, but it's something that stays with me. It's almost like a little bit of a shadowed corner in the back of my mind, because it was a really emotional time. So I've seen a lot of dark stuff in my life. I've seen, there's intense gory movies, just videos that you see circulating online, and I always thought I was weird for just having a stomach for it. It just never really bothered me. And then I'd always heard about the Passion of Christ, especially growing up. I went to a lot of Christian schools, Church of England, Catholics, whatever. And I always heard about this movie. I saw it was an 18 and I never really watched it. And then I tried to watch it. It took me 3 times to be able to sit through that movie. I've never been able to fully get through it emotionally. I even had to, the 3rd time that I did get through it was actually in 2 different sittings. And the reason why I'm telling you this way is because that movie was so intense and so moving that I just found it super hard to get through. The first time I just couldn't watch it. Second time, again, just couldn't watch it. I got a little bit further along, and there was just something that it was such a moving thing that I almost felt ashamed to be watching it, that humans were capable of doing that to another human. But more to the point, on the 3rd time that I actually watched it, I did get through it, and I was sleeping on my own that night, and I remember weeping. And that's a weird word for me to say, but I remember literally weeping. And it was a really weird situation because I was laid on my side in a fetal position, and I was really going through it, proper tears coming down, bottom lip was going. But yeah, I wasn't in my body. And so I was in that position, but it's like I was almost looking at myself, and perhaps it was Jesus, perhaps it was someone who was a figure behind me, and I was in this dialogue of, someone was asking me, why am I crying? Why am I weeping? I remember weeping so much because I was crying, but saying, I just don't feel good enough. I don't feel good enough. And for me to, even just in a movie, which in and of itself got off lightly, for me to watch that movie and see what he went through, what God put his only son through, and what he did to sacrifice for us, it instills this level of perfectionism, this level of just pure righteousness and holiness, and just a level of love that I still to this day, and I don't think I ever will be able to comprehend. I sometimes find it hard to, how could I ever be enough? How could I ever step up to that? And I know that he essentially died to, so it was basically like sealing a new covenant. But it's, the struggle of being a Christian is knowing that this is the bar and this is what he went through. And it's like, I'm trying to be up here and I never will. So sometimes it's hard being a Christian just because of the expectation that we put on ourselves. And it's hard to do that, to sometimes battle with yourself. Sometimes I feel like I'm crawling going to church and I don't even deserve a seat there, let alone to be present in the Lord's house. So there's this immense pressure just to understand what is it that's actually going on. You know, are you ever going to be good enough? And I know it's not, these are the things that I just wrestle with. I'm just really speaking open dialogue here, but that was intense for me. I've never had a movie move me like that. Never really had another person or any experience for that matter move me like that. So it was very hard to get through, and I actually haven't watched the movie since. I know there's another one coming out, but these are things that just as a non-Christian, you're not really going to understand. We still have stuff that we go through in you know, the physical plane. There's always going to be things that are hard, but I just feel like it goes a little bit layer deeper as a Christian, because you really know what he went through for us, for our salvation, for us to just live as we are now. And then it makes you sad because you see people take it for granted. One of the things that I've tried, well, there's a couple of things that I've shifted away from in a way that the Lord's helped me, but things just like swearing, secular music, you realise how, you know, the elites of Hollywood and how they become very demonic, and there's rituals and people just blatantly mocking Jesus. We see it in the Olympics, we see it in all these different instances of day-to-day life, predominantly with Western culture, I would say. And it's like someone so perfect, someone who just lived the most just and righteous life, had to go through all of that. And I feel like we've just completely thrown it down the drain at times. So sometimes I get this wave of emotion, this pressure that's crushing me down. And it's like, because I'm human just as much as the worst humans are, the ones that are still denouncing Jesus, we're all connected. So it's like I've got this sea of people that are dragging us down, and I feel responsible for them. So it's like I'm battling my own battles and trying to be enough for God, but then I know that I have a responsibility to be helping of those as well, because whilst God says, let the dead bury their dead, we as rooted Christians should be going forth and spreading the word. So I do feel a sense of responsibility. So it's like being dragged down 10 times as much. So there's all these different paradigms where it's just hard work sometimes. And I felt like it was important for me to tell you this, because sometimes we think that it is going to be a walk in the park. You know, even in heaven, we're still going to be working, we're still going to be labouring, because that is the root of a good Christian. Jesus lived many, many years of his life as a carpenter, working with wood, putting in long hours. So, you know, there's probably different directions that I could have gone on in that video, but I feel like if I wrap it up here, I've at least given you a good message that you can understand. So God bless, and I'll see you for the next one.